Meanwhile, a new set of military drills are taking place in the Gulf of Oman. Any guesses as to who could be staging these drills? Well, it might not come as a surprise because it is China, Russia and Iran who are taking part in these drills that could potentially raise tensions with the US. What China calls an exercise to deepen cooperation between the participating countries' navies could well be a retaliatory move towards the United States as economic and security issues continue to rise between the two. But what are these joint drills all about? The Security Belt 2023 Joint Maritime Military Exercise is a development of the earlier two drills that were held in 2019 and 2022. The three countries, in fact, wish to demonstrate their capacity in safeguarding maritime security in the Gulf of Oman. The Chinese PLA has also sent a guided missile destroyer called Nanning to the exercises. The United States, for its part, has been trying to take a pretty safe stance. It has said that it is not concerned about the training exercise. Now, that makes sense because this is not the first time that the countries are training together. The US National Security Council has also emphasized that it will try and make sure that there is no threat to the nation's security and that of its allies. Talking about allies, let's take the country which is far from being US's ally, the most heavily sanctioned nation among the three, Russia. While the United States continues to punish the country by imposing economic sanctions, China, on the other hand, is also deepening ties with Moscow. This raises a question: could this lead to China's potential willingness to offer military aid to Vladimir Putin? The United States, remember, has done no favors to try and win China onto its side because there's been a furious trade war that the United States has waged against China, besides the contain China policy that the United States has resorted to for more than a decade and a half. Now, China has raised a lot of eyebrows as it goes to help Moscow economically by rejecting the G7's price cap on oil and is now also extending its hand in support for a healthier relationship with Moscow with these military drills. And there's more. The Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russia's Vladimir Putin caught up over a phone call. And this was around New Year's Eve. The two sides released statements saying that the ties between the two are at their historic best. And what's more, Vladimir Putin also said that he's expecting a state visit from Xi Jinping pretty soon. He said, and I quote him here, "We're expecting you, dear friend," was the message from Moscow. But do not be mistaken, China is not the only one that is partnering with Russia. The case is pretty much similar with Iran. The Tehran is still purchasing Russian oil and is sending military aid to Moscow in return. This is true. This has been going on for the last 1 year. Tehran has sent many kamikaze drones, and if reports are to be believed, then it is also just sending ballistic missiles to Russia for Russia to use in the war since October. The friendship between the three nations seems to be getting stronger, as leaders have been seen very frequently flying to each other's capitals. In July last year, the Russian president went to Tehran. He met with his counterpart Ibrahim Raisi and discussed the issue of strengthening bilateral ties. And then, in November, a group of Russian security officials visited Iran. The aim was to try and find ways to counter the Western pressure on both these nations. In the latest, China also hosted bilateral talks with Iran in which they landed on an agreement to try and restore relations after 7 years of tensions, and this may have disturbed the United States as it has strained ties with Iran since the founding of the Islamic Republic, when Iran had in fact taken several US diplomats as hostages. And amidst all the tension between the United States and the other three, the Chinese leader Xi Jinping at this moment appears to be pretty buoyant as he's now entered into his third term. Xi has recently called the United States as a big threat to China's growth. He did not just stop there. He blamed the Biden administration for leading a campaign of suppression against China's troubles. Right now, what we are witnessing are the third set of military drills between China, Russia and Iran. While the United States has been trying to isolate each of these three nations individually, what we are witnessing is perhaps the birth of a new triangular alliance in Asia, which will go a long way in shaping America's diplomacy in this part of the world, and has also in many ways turned American efforts to isolate these nations completely hollow. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.